call the meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Here. John?
Here.
Jay?
Here.
Kurt?
Here.
Nancy?
Yes.
Cindy?
Here.
And Mark?
Here. We have a full assembly tonight, so that's good. It's now time for the voluntary Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for March 3rd, 2014. I have entertain a motion to approve those minutes unless there's changes or...
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Member Haverlick, seconded by Member Lynn to approve the meeting minutes of March 3rd, 2014. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, minutes are approved. And now we're looking for approval of this evening's meeting agenda or any amendments. I'll entertain a motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Member Havlicek, seconded by Member Strand to approve this evening's meeting agenda. Is there no changes proposed? Seeing none. All those in favor of going ahead with tonight's agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Next item on the agenda is public hearings and bid awards. There's one item there. It's one bid was received. It's award for the Crane Dock widening project bid. There was one bid received for the project on March 4th and was deemed responsive and within budget. The harbor master has recommended the bid of $611,500 from Western Marine Construction for the base bid and one added alternative to be awarded. I'll entertain a motion to award that bid.
So moved. Second.
Been moved by Member Walhooter, seconded by Member Haverlick to award this bid. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk call the roll?
Jay?
Yes.
Kurt?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
And Nancy?
Yes.
Okay, it passes unanimously to award the bid to Western Marine Construction for the widening of the crane dock. Is there any visitors' views related to tonight's agenda? Now would be the time to get up and speak to any items on the agenda. Please state your name and who you represent.
My name is Susan Thomason, and I've served on the Planning and Zoning Commission since October 2010. I'd like to address items 13B and C on the agenda. From a historical perspective, as a member of the commission, this has been the observation on this agenda, these two agenda items, B and C. Point of reference I'd like to point out about these. The rationale, the Planning and Zoning Commission desired to resolve some long-standing issues for two single-family residential lots that from the date of purchase, which has been in the past 20 years, were used as storage areas. Planning and Zoning desired to ensure that 50 years from now there will be guidelines in place, including screening from the street views. These two lots, I'll add, buffer against industrial zoning. And then it goes straight into single-family residential. Is this correct, Leo? Thanks. An explanation at our December meeting gave a brief history of when this land was annexed into the city of Petersburg in the early 1980s. And I wasn't here then, and many of you might have been. There apparently was a map in the chambers, and people who owned property came in and colored it in the code, the zoning that they wanted for this area. And then the coded map was approved as colored. And were there any changes to the zoning of that area from the
A little
colors?
bit over time, but
Okay.
not many.
Have to check with the boss here. But the coded map was approved as colored. And it, were there any changes to the zoning of that area from the colors?
A little bit over time, but not many.
Okay. So the Planning and Zoning Commission received a request from Aaron and Katrina Miller for a conditional use permit to allow the construction of a net shed located at 107 Arness Heights Drive. The public hearing was held September 13, 2011. The conditional use permit to allow a net shed at 107 Arness Heights Drive with specific conditions and limitations was granted by the Planning and Zoning on October 21st, 2011. And then the conditional use comes up for review about every 2 years? Thanks. So a review of the conditional use permit was scheduled for August 13th, 2013, pending the 2-year anniversary of the permit for the construction of the net shed with conditions and limitations. This is just a brief overview and without every detail. The request for the public hearing for zoning change, so we reviewed it. And then the request for the public hearing for zoning changes with the Planning and Zoning Commission took place on November 12th, 2013 meeting, with a public hearing on the agenda for the next Planning and Zoning meeting, which was in December 2013. Due to circumstances and scheduling, the actual hearing took place on December 10th, 2013 for the request to change the zoning classification, and now I'm speaking for both lots, 105 and 107 Arness Drive, as it's sometimes referred to, from single-family residential to industrial, because it abuts industrial. Letters were sent notifying all property owners within 600 feet. Leah Luzak read 4 letters into the record at the December 10th, 2013 Planning and Zoning meeting. After considerable discussion from the public and the Planning Commission, 2 identical motions regarding these 2 lots, 105 and 107 Arness Heights Drive, and the numbers are there on the paper, were presented for recommendation to the Petersburg Borough Assembly. The zoning considerations for the parcels requested be changed from single-family residential to commercial 2, adhering to an ordinance 19.32.05, where screening on the street side is agreed to by the landowners. And this was thought to be in place then when we're all no longer here. Then you have that buffer. The idea was a buffer or transition zone from the industrial to the residential. It's our understanding that when you have a commercial 2, it's light industrial with transportation, warehouse, that type of thing. You cannot turn it into a complete industrial zone. Do you want to enlighten us a little bit?
Yeah, it's more of a commercial 2 is. Commercial 1 is downtown businesses, basically. Commercial 2
Could you
allows
state your
warehouse.
name, please, Leo? for
Oh,
people?
Leo Luzek, the building official. Commercial 2 allows more warehousing, storage, that type of thing.
Which, and the people present could give you more detailed background as to the length that these 2 properties have been used as such, storage, warehouse, etc., how long that has gone on. Anyway, these recommendations to the Assembly Borough were passed unanimously, and they are now on your agenda for tonight. Thank you.
Any questions of the Chair of the Planning and Zoning?
Mayor, may I just... Susan, the conditional use permit that was issued in October of 2011, was that the one about the fence? Having
Yes, a
built?
fence and I think a setback and how big the net shed could be. The owners of that property could address the issues with that in detail for you. But they weren't able to meet the constraints that were originally placed on that piece of property, and that, I believe, was 107 Arness Heights Drive. And that is owned by Katrina and Aaron Miller, and then the other piece, the Lot 105, is owned by Richard Burrell.
Okay.
So that is just a brief overview how we came as a planning commission to make a recommendation to you as the Borough Assembly.
If I
Okay.
just-
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Any other questions?
Just one more.
I hope from
Is
you.
there, I'm sorry. As I understood it, the Burrells and the Millers were agreeing to some additional conditions if this was allowed to go through.
Covenants.
Am I saying that properly?
I believe they're covenants, except
Okay.
that the ordinance that Leo was able to find, 19.32.05, actually says there needs to be a screening on the street side. Commercial 2
Is
property.
the issue that caused the original fence not to be built, will these new covenants or restrictions, will they be able to be done or not? Or are we going to run into the same problem or concern? Do you know?
At our December 10th meeting, they were agreed upon by the parties in question.
Would you like Leo to get up and explain the chain of events? I mean, or
Yeah,
you
he-
said-
Yes.
December.
Great.
This is my knowledge as to what went on with the Planning Commission and where we are. And of course, Leo is the more expert person on finer details.
Okay, and I guess I could ask Leo this, but of the 4 letters that were read into the record, I think was the November 13th meeting, what did I write down? Yeah, 12/10/13 meeting. Was there a letter from Aliberti, Joe Aliberti? Or is this
No.
letter that was given to us today the first time we've seen a complaint from this property owner?
That arrived more recently. It wasn't read into the record because it wasn't submitted.
At planning and zoning, this was
True.
never heard. Okay. Any other questions of Susan? Bob?
Question, the provisions you put on it or that were requested, the planning and zoning agreed to those, did they think that there should be others, planning and zoning?
When we heard the definition of commercial 2 property in the ordinances, we thought that that provided enough parameters and guidelines. And then if the parties agreed, and at the time, Mr. Weaver was represented by his wife, who also agreed, who owns the residential, most of the residential lots along Arness Heights. They all agreed to do a private covenant. And that is not enforceable. My understanding is it's not enforceable by the borough. So that's why we came up with that ordinance on commercial 2 that does provide enforcement for screening on the street side.
Does that answer your question, Bob?
Does,
Kurt?
yeah,
Is there requirements for particular heights of fences and stuff on that ordinance? I'm not familiar with that
I'd have to
ordinance.
refer that question to Leo. Is there a height?
There was a height. I can't open my computer for some reason, but the commission worked out all those details. I believe it was 8 feet
Was it
and
eight?
with some kind of screening, so, and I think they're going to put trees in front of it also, but I'm just going by memory on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, there was discussion about trees. Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
one
can
question,
I
Mr. Mayor, if can.
address him? Yes.
Because I read all those letters from Aaron and some of those guys, and they said that they would do whatever what was necessary. I think it's a question that Steve was beginning to allude to is, when do we plan on doing this? This has now been 3 years in the process. Is it going to be another 3 years, or can we expect something by the 4th of July this year?
That would be a property owner.
Yeah. Well, we could, maybe when we're done with talking with Susan, we could ask if any of the landowners, property owners want to come up and speak. Views related to the agenda. I guess that might be the best way. Any other questions of the chairman of the planning and zoning, who was going to be leaving too soon, but that's...
Yes, too soon.
Darn.
Okay, seeing none, thank you, Susan. Anybody else want to speak to this? Katrina, can you please state your name for the record and who you represent?
Katrina Miller, and I represent Aaron and Katrina Miller. Thank you for taking the time to consider this ordinance. We ask for your support for the changing of zoning on our lot. We feel that these conditions stipulated would be appropriate with this rezone. We are willing to give up our property for a 20-foot greenbelt on the east side of the property between Arness Heights Drive. We will plant alder trees and cottonwood trees. We will build an 8-foot wood fence around the north and the east sides of the property. We will install a hinge gate for vehicle access, which will be kept shut at all times and only open to allow access for vehicles. No rock crusher, asphalt plant, and cement plant will be placed in operation on this parcel. This area will be used for light commercial use. The area would only be used intermittently, and the vast majority of the time there will be no activity occurring on our lot. We propose these conditions for our rezone request in an effort to find a practical win-win solution for this area. The reality is that a long-established area of an industrial zone property lies immediate west of our Lot 4. A rezone request is also pending for Lot 3. Immediately south of our parcel, however, the next parcel to south of Lot 3, which is Lot 2, if that makes sense to everybody, is already zoned industrial. So Lot 3, which is Borough's, and Lot 4, which is ours, are already borderline parcels. Our rezone request asks in essence that the boundary between the residential and the more intense use zones in this area be moved from one side of these two lots to the other. Look at the map on page 63 of your packet if you guys have any questions about the areas. There are two houses in the area that were built on zoned residential, and there are two other houses in the area that were zoned on commercial property that we can see from our lot. We feel that the zoning change would not have a detrimental impact on the surrounding properties. The existing uses of zoning in this area are comparable to nearby properties. Our land is abutted up to industrial land. We feel that it physically fits the area. We will take the steps to make this look right with a green belt and a fence. There is a community need in Petersburg for more commercially zoned land. Under the current zoning right now, there is no requirement for a fence or green belt along any of the boundaries of lots 3 or 4. If lots 3 and 4 remained zoned single-family residential, they were bordered directly on industrial properties with no buffer. If our conditional rezone is granted, the fence we propose and the green belt along the east boundary of our lot 4 will establish an aesthetic and safety separation between residential and industrial zones in this area that do not exist now. We are trying to be reasonable and accommodating, and we are willing to give up our property, some of this property, for this plan. It makes sense for us and the surrounding areas. This is Petersburg, and we respect residential boundaries. However, there is an important need in Petersburg to support fishing and other commercial activities in close proximity to single-family homes. We are willing to take practical steps to preserve it. We currently pay around $300 in property tax. Our future plans for this lot is to build a warehouse on this piece of land. That will increase the value of this lot by a lot. The reason we have not built a net shed or a fence yet on our property is we did not agree with our conditional use permit. We felt really limited by the area we could use, and we didn't want to spend any more money on this lot until we could find a reasonable solution. I hope that you consider this rezone. It makes more sense to have a green belt and an 8-foot high fence than have nothing at all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Katrina. Is there any questions of Katrina Miller?
Yeah, I have a couple, Katrina. One, I wish the assessor was here. We had just talked with him. Is the value of a commercial lot in your area the same as the value of a residential lot?
I don't know. I'm
And-
sorry.
Okay.
I would hazard a guess, if I may, that commercial is probably valued higher than residential.
And then the other thing, the thing of the commercial, not commercial, the conditional use permit, or whatever you call it. Did you guys, when that was granted, did you guys agree to the terms of that?
We agreed to the terms of it, but we went and measured the area And it was too small for us to put the size of warehouse we wanted and to put the fence where they wanted us to put it. It's for Aaron to safely store his crab pots and get a boom truck in there and work on gear and move gear. So that's why we didn't do anything, and we wanted to, apply for a rezone.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions of Kurt?
Do you see that changing, Katrina, if we approve this? I mean, how is that going to change the size of the property now? Are you still going to be able to put your net shed up there and put the
Yeah.
fence on there?
Yeah, because with the conditional use permit, is it like a 200 by 200 lot roughly?
Yeah.
And they wanted us to set back 100 feet from one side, I think it was, and 50 feet from the other side.
The road, which is ridiculous.
So it was just a little postage stamp.
So if the zoning's changed to commercial, you'll be able to use more of the
Yeah.
lot for your business.
So, yeah, we would like to put a warehouse on it. We don't know when, but someday. But our plans, if you guys approve this, is we have to put more fill in, and then we have to get a fence, a wood fence, and I have to find a contractor to install it. But we would, start working on it right away.
Any other questions, Jay?
Yes, what was your timeline for completion of fence, greenbelt stuff?
If you guys approve this right
Correct.
now, I would hope if I can find a contractor to get it done by fall, completely done. Start on it this spring to get it rocked in and stuff, and then we have to get the lumber and stuff.
Thank you.
Kurt, you had a
Mark,
question?
this is a question for Leo. Leo, what's the required setbacks if this becomes commercial too for off the property line for green strips and all that stuff?
There are no setbacks in commercial, but if you get too close to the property line, then you have to build firewalls, and you can't have any windows or doors for the spread of fire, so that's the only limitation.
Other questions?
Sure.
Is this a follow-up question here for you, Leo. So is this going to, is there going to be any conditional use at this point, from a setback from off the street for a green belt at all? If this is approved, or is there going to still, are they going to build right up to the road or fill right up to the road?
That was part of the conditions recommended for approval. Was it, how far was it from the
It's
road
a
right away?
20-foot green belt.
20 foot,
Okay.
okay.
So we'll put the green belt along Arness Heights, and it just have our little driveway. And then the fence will be along Arness Heights, and then it'll be to the north on the map there, all the way to the north of putting out a fence.
So that fence will then head to the west on the northern corner?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Bob, you have a question?
I have one for Leo, and that's, okay, so if that's approved, then, and let's say that it's not followed through with the terms on the permit, what recourse do you have then to, can you change the zoning back, or can we require the things to be taken? What's your enforcement on it to make sure that it's accomplished?
If it wasn't accomplished in the time frame, I'd schedule a hearing again at Planning and Zoning and ask them to take appropriate action, whether that be through the courts or what, but
I can, maybe, Mr. Mayor, to answer your question, we would, at that point, after the hearing, if there wasn't any recourse, it'd go to the city attorney and into Superior Court.
So there are steps to be taken.
I had to call to find out, but got an answer.
Kurt?
Another question for Leo. Has the P&Z board discussed what they were going to do with, I'm just going to assume what they're going to do with Lot 5 and 6, because it looks like 7 may have a road in it now. Have they discussed making all of that C2 and putting that buffer in between the industrial and the single-family dwellings?
that was discussed by Mark and Pat Weaver. However, there were only 2 lots applied for, and you can't really expand beyond the 2 you've advertised. So they had some thoughts on that, but those lots aren't sold yet, so they don't really know if someone would like to put a similar situation on those 2 lots.
One other question for Leo is, what do you think it's going to do then to the value of the lots that are on the inside there? I don't have a number on them, but
I don't really know much about assessments. You mean the adjoining residential properties?
Yes,
I'm not sure how the assessment would be affected on that. I
okay.
couldn't
And
say.
then, under that, was there, and I'm looking now at lot 3 there also, is that, we said, well, we're not going to have rock crushers or anything else, but what about hazardous materials, gas, oil storage, et cetera?
No, that wouldn't be allowed. That's why the commission considered commercial too. Because if it was zone industrial, that is our least restrictive zoning, and anything can go on industrial. Rock crushers, petroleum plants, and so this was an effort to make it a more limited use.
Okay, I think we're getting a lot of the discussion done now, but we're going to be talking about the ordinance. This is basically visitors' views related to the agenda. But thanks, Katrina. Any other visitors with views related to the agenda? Richard, you want to come up, state your name and who you represent? We all know who you are, but just for the record.
My name's Richard Burrell, and I'm representing Richard Burrell. Anyway, you had a question there about hazardous stuff there. And my whole intent isn't to build anything or any buildings on the lot, just to use it for parking with equipment, that's all. And it's most of the time, it's just in the winter time when we're doing our maintenance, and then summertime, it's gone. And that was the whole thing for us.
Okay.
No intent to build anything on the lot at all.
Okay, any questions of Richard? Nancy?
No, it looks like pretty much like you're already using it
Yeah,
as if it were commercial,
yeah. Well, we're parking on it, not building anything.
so. And I just have a question about this whole thing being residential butting up against industrial, whether it's a different subdivision or not. I'm having a lot of trouble understanding how that happened. And is this going to make it just creep over further, or is it going to alleviate this problem?
Don't know, but maybe that's a better, discussion to have when we're debating this under the, the first reading. But yeah, I don't know. Where does it stop? But
Yeah.
so any other, Kurt?
Mr. Mayor, I just have a question for Richard here. Thanks for coming by, Richard, and testifying on this. So your intentions for fencing, is it going to be on the southern border of your property and abut into
Well,
the Miller property, or
The southern border is commercial.
Oh, okay.
to
So you
that
don't have to put
lot.
anything there?
Huh?
So you won't have to put anything there?
I assumed that we wouldn't, no, because it's commercial.
So then you're only,
We're gonna just do along Arnes Heights.
okay.
And then it would actually correspond with the Miller's fence, kind of all be one,
Okay.
and go up and then down, and then there's that green belt. And our intentions were to put some dirt and stuff in there and make it so some trees would grow up. Alders and stuff, that was our intentions. And then you wanted to know about how long it'd take. Well, it's the way the winter's going. I would say probably fall before we could have the fence up and everything. Because we were thinking of having a cedar, and we are gonna have somebody mill us some cedar. There's a guy in Wrangell that does that a lot. So, takes a little time to get all those things.
No, that seems to be a reasonable time.
Yeah,
timeframe.
yeah. We would actually do something if we had, if you guys passed it and it went on, we would go ahead with it. But no sense spending money and then you say no.
It's a 6-week process. It has to go through
Yeah, I know.
3 readings, so, but yeah.
I know. But you gotta bear in mind, I'm just my feeling, you gotta bear in mind that if we don't do a green belt and trees and stuff, those people are still gonna look in our backyard, regardless. And they're not gonna like what they see anyway. So, it's
Yeah.
just, something to think about. Nobody likes it out there. They don't like looking at my place, but that's just the way it is.
Okay, is there any other questions of Richard? No? All right, thanks, Richard, for your
You're welcome.
testimony. Any other visitors' views related to items on tonight's agenda? Can you please state your name and who you represent, please?
I'm Ray Peters, and I'm representing myself, and I'm on topic 14B, recycling. I personally think this bid is a little high. It's about double what PIA used to do it for. I think it should be thrown out and rebidded, or the city hire a part-time employee, and I think you could do it for about half price. I mean, this is twice as much as it was, so that's all I have to say.
Any questions of Ray?
I might even throw a bid in for this.
Thanks, Ray. Okay, we're still on visitors' views related to the agenda. Anybody else want to speak to views on related to tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing no interest, we'll move to visitors' views unrelated to the agenda. Is there any visitors' views unrelated to any item on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none. Board, commission, and committee reports. There's nothing under that item. Consent agenda, there's 2 items on this evening's consent agenda. The first one is the Finance Director Towle, supported by the Transient Room Tax Committee, has recommended the allocation of $21,033 of the transient room tax to the Chamber of Commerce for roof replacement of the Visitor Center. The building belongs to the Borough, and Municipal Code 4.33.060 directs TRT funds to be expended on visitor-related services, including maintenance of facilities. That's the first item. Second item is local approval of alcoholic beverage licenses renewal for the Loyal Order of the Moose, number 1092, and the Beachcomber Inn. I would entertain a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda, unless people want to discuss them one at a time. But generally, we just vote on them as a lump. But
So moved.
there's a second?
Second.
Been moved by Member Walhitter, seconded by Member Greger to approve the items on the consent agenda this evening. Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Jay,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
and Nancy.
Yes.
Okay, the items on the consent agenda this evening pass unanimously. And that brings us to report of other officers. I don't see Hannah Funt in the audience. She was going to give us a report from the school if she was here. She's the student representative. But I see Donnie here, so we have a report from Parks and Recreation Director Donnie Hayes, and he's going to talk about the Sandy Beach Shelter Restoration Project.
Good evening. Just wanted to take a minute or two and just give an update of the progress that we have on the Sandy Beach Shelter. I gave you guys in your packets a quick pictorial history of kind of where we've been at and where we're heading at this moment. Right now, we brought Dave Nauman back on. Early, we brought him back in the middle of January, 6 weeks earlier than he normally comes on, just so we can make sure that this project will be finished by Mayfest. And so that's our intent and our plan. Just to kind of give you an update of where we've been the last couple of weeks. The last 6 weeks we've taken and we've been cleaning all the roof logs, so that way those are all ready to go. Those are all finished. We are now in the process of actually building the roof structure. And I added 2 pictures to your packet tonight to kind of give you a little description of what we're doing at this point with that. So we should have the roof up. We're looking at a time frame of the next 4 weeks to be able to actually get the roof beams up, and then from there another 2 weeks to finish the final roof. And so we should be ready to have a ribbon cutting ceremony the week of Mayfest, and that's our plan. Any questions?
Sounds like there'll be all kinds of ribbons being cut that weekend. Any questions of the Parks and Rec Director? Thanks, Donnie.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Brings us to the mayor's report. I guess that's my turn. We have an appointment for nominations to the Local Emergency Planning Committee. Our Local Emergency Planning Committee has vacancies and is requesting the Borough Assembly nominate to the State of Alaska Emergency Response Commission the following individuals to be appointed to the vacancies. Police Chief Kelly Swihart as law enforcement member, Aaron Michael as first aid member, and Lori Miller as hospital member. So I would entertain a motion to approve these people to that appointment.
I so move. Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Member Lagadakis, seconded by Member Strand. Any discussion on the matter? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we will submit the names. Thanks for your interest. Vacancy announcements. There remains a vacancy on Planning and Zoning Commission. Residents interested in serving as a Planning Commission member until October 2014 election should submit a letter of interest to myself or the Borough Clerk. Board of Equalization reminder, the Assembly will meet as the Board of Equalization beginning at 9 a.m. Wednesday, April 2nd to hear appeals of the 2014 property tax assessments. And then we also need to schedule a work session. Electric Department Superintendent Joe Nelson would like to meet with the Assembly in a work session to discuss the 2013 revenue requirement study prepared by D. Hiddle and Associates. So should we do them one at a time, or just, I'll announce the next one and we'll just decide what we can do. The Hospital Board has submitted their proposed operating budget for the next fiscal year and are hoping for the Borough to commit to several substantial capital requests. A work session with the Hospital Board, independent of other budget work sessions, may be in order. So, with that being said, I will be out of town from this weekend till the end of the first week in May. So, if they're happening before that, I won't, be involved in the process anyway. So, what works for everybody else's schedule on the Assembly?
Mr. Mayor, may I make a comment before we talk? Is it possible to have a work session on the next fiscal year budget of the boroughs before we meet with the Hospital Board?
I don't know. That might be a question better asked of the manager. He knows the timing on that. Or Jody did send out a schedule, and I don't know if you were on the Assembly then, Bob, or not, of the time frame for...
I believe so, but I'm...
Yeah, I don't know. That would be a question for Steve or for Jody.
The challenge is going to be, our budget should be out to the Assembly in, 2 weeks, Jody? 3 weeks?
Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks.
And the hospital has responded to an earlier email of mine that the only time they can meet is March 31st to April 4th, that week. So that doesn't, those two schedules are not going to mesh really well, unless the hospital can meet some other time.
Unless, there's really nothing, as far as meeting goes, there's nothing we really can say other than listen to why, their proposals, because you can't mesh them, you can't measure their capital projects or anything else with the borough's projects until you have, the whole package together, so to speak. At least that's the way I see it.
Steve, do you have a...
Definitely there's a point. Our challenge is with those two schedules aren't going to mesh. Unless, again, the hospital can meet later than what they indicated to me. I'm going to take them at the email that Liz had sent to me, that's the time that they can meet. So I suppose the real answer is we'll get the budget to the Assembly as soon as we can, and at this point hold off scheduling a work session with the hospital until we can go back and talk to them and see if they can meet any other time.
Or the only other option is to meet, just to understand their capital projects and their needs. That'd be the only other reason for doing it.
That could probably be done.
I leave that to the will of the Assembly.
The way I viewed their email and their capital projects request was if they're going to ask the borough for financing, I think they're probably going to have to just get put on the capital projects list that we submit to the legislature.
That's the way I see it, in some
You know,
kind
that's
of a
my
priority.
personal view at this point. So, I mean, that's not until next fall. John?
Mr. Mayor, and, you know, I kind of thought that's what we decided when we met with them, and Liz stated that the only thing she wanted from the borough is to put their capital projects list on with ours for the state. And, you know, I think that's as far as we should go, and that's what they requested, and, yeah, I think we're honoring it by doing just what you said, just putting it on the state list, and, you know, we're done.
You know, I think maybe it might have raised people's awareness, for maybe the lack of the proper term, when you watching the legislature go through its process right now, when they start talking about raising the PERS liability to municipalities from 22 to 24%, which, rough numbers, puts it over $100,000 more that the, you know, Petersburg Medical Center is going to be liable for. So I can see why they'd be asking for money, but where are we going to get it? So it's going to
Exactly.
be on, you know, when we need to have that discussion. I can't, you know, really say, but I know it needs to be had. I mean, that's obvious.
And
Steve, the other?
if I could, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but Tim Keeneman is on the hospital board, came in to see me and brought that capital list to me. As I understood his request, the hospital is looking for some funding in this coming fiscal year. They're not, you know, I think they appreciate stuff being put on the list, but they're saying they want funding on certain projects right now. I think the roof project is one that they're very concerned about. So I agree with John. That's what I took away from that previous work session, that the borough agreed to do that, but maybe something has changed, but the hospital seemed to indicate from Tim's conversation with me that they want funding from the borough for this upcoming budget period. So, to what extent, I can't answer that. I mean, I think that's what the hospital would have to define. But.
As far as scheduling a time for it, was that a position of the PMC board?
I can't speak for that.
Don't know that, okay,
That's
and that's another question in my mind.
yeah. That's Tim Keeneman said he was bringing it to me, and that Liz was also going to send an email. She did. I'm assuming it's speaking for the whole board, but
Okay.
I don't know that for sure.
As far as work session with Joe, you thought he was in the room. There he is. Are you open pretty much any time? I mean, we're not going to have it right now, though. I think we'd have to advertise it. We might be able to get out
Joe
of it.
Nelson, Power and Light. I was kind of hoping to just speak to you a little bit about where we're at with the rate study and the budgeting and how that's coming together. And before I can finalize it, send it to Steve and Jody, maybe some direction from you folks. So could I speak to that, or is now the appropriate time?
He's got a really quick summary he could probably
Sure.
give to
And
you
then we'll
guys.
figure out a time frame for having will this be the meeting, or are we going to need, probably should
Well,
have
I'm hoping that
advertise.
if you're satisfied with what I have to say, with the way I summarize it, then we can preclude having a work session.
And you'll circulate this to us by email or as well? Sure.
The results of our budgeting, where we're at right now, we're at a point where the budget is essentially flat from what it was last year, and in fact, slightly down. But even at that, in order to meet our expenses, our budget does not meet Steve's criteria as far as his formula is concerned. Steve's formula requires you to add certain things, subtract certain things, and take a percentage of your depreciation, and you need to come out in a positive manner. Last year, the budget was deficit, according to that formula, at about $153,000. And that did include a rebate from SEPA. This year, without rebate, I talked to SEPA, and a rebate this year is it's got some problems. They're trying to fund that Swan Lake Raise project. The state has not been forthcoming in providing any funding to help out with that, so SEPA may have to fund that whole thing. That being the case, we probably won't see a rebate. But the budget for this year, this fiscal year, without the rebate, we are in deficit about $259,000. So that's kind of where the budget's at. So then the question becomes, what do we do about that? Our rate study, or revenue projection study, told us that we needed to have a 2% increase this year, 2% next year. If we did that, if you approve the rate increases, we would be just slightly, or would bring our deficit down to about 83,000 next year, and then the following year we would be on the plus side of the formula. That's one option. The other option then is to take a look at our reserve, and maybe take a look at, instead of doing the rate increases now, actually having a deficit budget that purposely draws the reserve down. The new bottom for our reserve has been established at $4 million. There's quite a discussion we get into on how we come up with that figure, but the figure back in 2005 was 2.5 million, and so it's grown from 2.5 to 4 in the roughly 10 years. So that's the other option. We could postpone, I guess you would say, the rate increase for probably 3+ years if we drew the present reserve down, approaching that 4 million bottom. So in order for us to bring something to you that that you're going to like, we kind of need to know what direction should we go. Should we go with the rate increases, stay solvent, make sure that we have adequate money for depreciation looking forward, or should we draw the reserve down and postpone that to future years?
Okay, and Kurt?
Mr. Mayor, I got a question for Joe. Joe, what do you see is that would increase the revenue stream that might come up in 3 years without having to change the rate, to increase the rates?
On the horizon, I'm not seeing anything, Kurt, that would increase the revenue stream. Our revenues are pretty flat now. We had 2-3 years where they really went up with the electric heat conversions, but right now the electric heat that we're seeing are in the form of heat pumps, which don't take that much so much energy. And the other thing is that the conversion seems to be saturated. We're not seeing a lot of conversions.
Good, Kurt? Bob?
I've read and reread the study, and it raises a lot of questions to me that I really do think that this group needs to have a work session with Joe on. It's not appropriate here. I mean, there was lots of questions that need to be addressed. I think there was some good work done, but I think there's some others needs to be done. And we could sit here for 2 hours and just talk about that, and I don't think it's appropriate here.
I agree. I mean, I think we still need to schedule some kind of a formal work session to discuss the in more detailed. I have one question, though. You brought up there won't be a rebate this year, and that money's going to be dedicated to help raise the Swan Lake project. Was that a SEPA direction, or is that what the board's, is that a SEPA board direction?
That is a SEPA board direction, that's correct.
Okay, so
when the board takes a look at whether or not there's going to be a rebate, they look at the performance for that past year, the financial performance, and then they look at what's coming down the pike. And so that's kind of where we're at today. The CEO, Trey, is not saying that there won't be. He's not saying that, don't misunderstand me, but he's saying that there is a likelihood that there won't be, if we have to fully fund the Swan Lake raise.
Right. I think I'd like to see some discussion. Well, I know the SEPA board members do the voting, but I think the assemblies, it'd be nice to, I don't know, have input or just updates. I know you're very good at updating us on things that are going on with the board now, but this is the first I heard of the possibility of no rebate. So.
We could do at the next meeting, I'd be glad to speak to the Swan Lake project and other projects forthcoming.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's much talk about money for hydro projects in Southeast.
Based on that, Mr. Mayor, to keep our budget on track, we should probably, it'd be great if we could do the work session next week sometime. Joe, are you in town next week?
I'm available, yeah.
Okay, pick a date. I'll be gone Sunday. Kurt will be out of town as well, and John's leaving in early April. I mean, if it's just a work session, there probably won't be any action taken.
At some point,
I guess we have to take action.
we really need
So-
to know, because the way our ordinances work today, it's a 3-reading issue.
Right.
So we have
Right.
to, we're running up against some really hard budget numbers, or dates that we have to hit.
So it's 3 days to advertise, right, Kathy? For a meeting,
For a special meeting.
for a special meeting? And that's what we would have to have if we were going to be taking action?
Yeah, but you'd be talking on passing an ordinance if you're taking action.
So then we have to put it on the next
Or
regular
are you
meeting.
taking action on what you want to do with the budget?
Can I make a
That's what you're
recommendation?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
A special meeting with a work session, and then followed by a couple of action items, probably related
Just 3
to,
days for a verbal,
Okay.
this or that. Just 3 days.
Well, today's Monday. People want to do it later in the week. I'm not going to have any time during the days. I mean, but that's just the way my schedule is right now. Kurt will be gone, probably, maybe at midnight.
No, I should be around. I hope to be home or here on Thursday, so if we want to do something at Thursday, I'd be around.
Friday's going to be your earliest.
Friday's the earliest date, yeah, if we started advertising tomorrow. What's the wish of the assembly? Any ideas?
Got availability Friday morning,
Um,
afternoon, no good.
Yeah, I may not be able to attend it if it's during the day, like I said, and I know nighttime meetings aren't desired by assembly members.
hey,
assembly
I
members,
can't-
so just,
I can't be picky, we got to get a budget done, so
Yeah, we do.
whatever it works.
Friday at 5 o'clock, or is that's a horrible time, because
Yes,
it's
it
the end of
is.
your work week. We've done that before, haven't we?
Yeah.
What's
Let's
wrong
not
with
do that.
Friday morning? You can't be there Friday morning?
I'm scheduled for, until I get on the boat and leave, which might be Sunday, unfortunately, but that's just the way it is. There's 7 of us, though.
Yeah.
I don't have to be here.
How about Friday morning at 9?
How about 5 a.m.?
5 a.m. sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'll do that.
I'm
Just
against
throwing
it.
some humor in there. No, I'm up at 5, but I don't think it's a good idea. Just,
Friday morning would be fine.
Could do 8.
8 I could do, gives me some time.
okay, scheduled for 8. If I can make it, I can make it. If not, there's, like I said, there'll be 6 other people in town, so that's just the way it goes.
Friday at 8.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. You're bringing the pancakes, or?
We did have some Krispy Kremes earlier this week.
Okay, now the hospital board. We're going to get together with them at some point as soon as possible to discuss their desires. I know what they sent us wasn't a really detailed budget. What do you think on that, Steve? You guys are the ones setting up the budget.
I think at this point, I probably need to circle back with the hospital and find out if they can meet sometime after the time that they gave me.
Okay.
And now, because Jody and I cannot get the budget done by that time frame.
Okay. Okay, so we'll meet with Power and Light, 8 a.m. on the 21st, and this will leave the meeting with the PMC board in limbo right now until you get more communications from them. Okay, now it's the manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Gary Peters from Procom Alaska paid us a visit first week in March. We brought him in to kind of evaluate our radio equipment and some coverage issues we've been having problems with both police and fire bands. Kind kind of started when we did the narrow banding project to meet some FCC rules, and we started having some areas that our radios stopped working. Gary does this all over the state of Alaska. He's kind of the guy everybody goes to, and he's preparing a report for Kelly and the fire department, talking about kind of a phased approach on how we can fix some things and get some better radio coverage. The goal I gave him is that I want something that can be phased in over time, in the sense that my assumption is that we're going to need radio coverage to the end of the road, and don't give us a solution that we have to turn around and replace again when we're asked to provide that. So that's what he's working on. PFI has one of their it is their largest transformer that's in trouble. We did a couple of oil tests for them, or Joe's group did. Came back bad. We have a temporary up there right now to try to get them through herring season. They've ordered the new one, and Joe's folks as well as PFI's are kind of babysitting it to make sure we can get through the season. Power and Light has provided temporary unmetered power to the hatchery, so they can kind of start taking some, evaluating what's going on out there. And he's also working with them for a more permanent solution, rebuild the meter base and get that back online as their plans kind of get more formalized. All apartments at the manor are full, and we have wait lists in all areas again. So it continues to be pretty successful up there. Handicap showers are both installed at the manor. This is something we're trying to do over time, is so that the assisted living facilities, all of those showers get converted to full handicap. And the assisted living walk-in whirlpool bath project should be starting next month, thanks to a lot of folks who donated money to that, and as well as some folks that getting the labor done. And we should have that done and in place for everybody. In the borough's final report to the local boundary commission, we had estimated that the taxable value of property outside Service Area 1 was about $46 million. Prior to any changes and appeals, and this number changes daily, so we were up to about $65 million taxable assessed value. This equates to about $261,000 in taxes at 4 mills, about 20 appeals so far, but again, that's a moving target. Some of those have been resolved, others have come in, so we really won't know what those numbers are until we're actually pretty much through the Board of Equalization. But just as a kind of comparison back to some of the estimates we made at that time. Ryan assisted the Deputy State Fire Marshal with some commercial building fire inspections in Petersburg last week, thanks to all of those involved in that. The Petersburg Volunteer Fire Department responded outside Service Area 1 to the hatchery fire with 1 engine and 5 firefighters. Ryan and the Deputy Fire Marshal investigated later that morning, and then Ryan also accompanied a private fire investigator and insurance assessor to the site a few days later. As we understand it, the plans are it's going to get rebuilt, but we don't have that official as of yet. Tentative date for starting the Rasmussen Bridge is kind of the end of March here. Weather depending, so I'm not sure if this will keep up and delay that further. We will have to close that bridge to all traffic when we're doing that project. And we will try to accommodate residents on the bridge in Singley Island as much as we can, but we can't open parts of it because how that repair will be done. Pending the right-of-way certifications, the South Nordic Drive project, including work on Pump Station 1 Force Main, will likely be bid out in late April, with construction starting in late August. The final paving work on South Nordic won't occur until 2015. The North Harbor finger floats are going in. North side fingers are all in the proper position, and Western Dock and Bridge is busy getting the piles to grade. The skiff float is back in place, and although we're still keeping the basin closed to keep people out of way from the construction, and don't want anybody getting hurt, and we don't want to slow the contractors down. Tamako sub Rockin' Road is busy trucking fill to the drive down project. This should continue for quite a while. their barge, Tameco's barge is pulled out until summer, and they've elected to leave the old dock in place until the new construction begins later on. But we'll keep having fill delivered and start building that up. Harbor's starting to get calls about summer transient stops. The word seems to be out about the new harbor, and we're getting people excited about coming to visit. Tour ship schedule is beginning to be finalized. It appears to be about the same number as last year at this point. So again, it's kind of a moving target. And the library has received a grant for $2,900 from the First Bank for the summer reading program. Wanted to thank First Bank for that. And they are working with the University of Alaska to coordinate the statewide library system for the catalog. Trying to get some network issues worked out, but when it's done, we'll have access to the entire state library network from here, and people can request books. We just got to, like I said, get the computer side of it worked out. The upgrade at the alarm system for the high school and the community gym is mostly complete, and we are scheduling at this point the replacement of the rain gutters on the community gym for spring, once we're pretty sure the weather will cooperate. So, and that was it, unless there's questions.
Any questions of the manager on his report? John?
Just a quick comment.
Yes,
Are there going to be any signs put up at the bridge notifying people that this is going to be closed pretty soon? And
We can do that. Public service announcements and...
Yeah, because the start date is such a moving target right now, we've hesitated on putting a date on it. But when we know for certain we'll start, we will be getting the word out in a few different ways.
okay, thanks.
Is that good, John? Yeah. Any other questions of the manager? I have one to see the contractor. Who's going to be responsible for the road maintenance on South Nordic if they tear it up starting in August and it's going to be a dirt road, I would imagine. Is that going to be the contractor's responsibility, or who's going to be taking
Mr.
care
Mayor,
of that?
knowing DOT's method of operation, they'll probably have it in their contract to have their contractor maintain the road during that shutdown.
Okay, that's generally how it works, but
Yeah.
just kind of red flag came up, and we have enough chuckles around town. We don't want...
Yeah.
You can imagine the complaints you'd be getting. Okay, thanks. That's the only question I had. Any more questions of the manager?
No, just
Cindy?
a point. You said the tour ships are about the same, but we do anticipate a number of boat rallies coming through
Oh,
this
that's right.
summer, and one of them has reportedly will bring at least 40 boats to town in the middle of all of this construction, so we'll have to do our best to be good hosts, but that certainly brings people and income to the community.
Great, that's good news.
Has that
Okay.
changed any, Go? Your number? Sorry.
Yeah, no, we're aware of that, and we're very excited for the different rallies. Our bigger tour ship numbers are down, so we were kind of using the two to offset each other, so.
Okay. Any more questions of the manager? Okay, seeing none, it brings us to unfinished business. And the first item is the Juneau appeal of Petersburg Borough boundaries. On February 28th, Superior Court Judge Menendez gave order affirming the Local Boundary Commission's decision on the formation of the amended boundaries of the Petersburg Borough. The appellant, City and Borough of Juneau, has until March 31st to appeal the decision to the Supreme Court. The lawyer fee for the Borough of Petersburg for the Superior Court appeal was $30,000, and our attorney intends to, if he hasn't already, ask the court for what we could get back, and it's only a third. Another little topic of interest is I was in Juneau for the regional tournament. It's been a little over a week ago, I guess now, but I met with our new representative until the next election, Sam Keetle III, and kicking around town, I talked to a few people that are associated with the borough, and I would be awful surprised from conversations I had with a few people up there if the Juneau Borough doesn't appeal it to the Supreme Court. So this might just be a little bubble of good news for now, and we might be wondering what the borough boundary is going to be for another 8-9 months. I know the Juneau Assembly is having a meeting tonight, a regular meeting. I don't know what was on their agenda, but it was they've only got till the end of the month, so if this is their last meeting, we might know, read the Juneau Empire in the morning, I guess, and see what's going on there. So anyway, it was good news for a while. Maybe it still will be. The next item under unfinished business is ordinance 2014-02, an ordinance amending the official zoning map for Service Area 1 of the Petersburg Borough to rezone Lot 3 of the subdivision of Tract B of the Olson subdivision from single-family residential to commercial with special limitations. And this is the first reading. I would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 2014-02 in its first reading.
So move.
There a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Member Walhooter, seconded by Member Gregor to adopt ordinance 2014-02 in its first reading. Discussion, other than what we had earlier, is there?
I have the
Nancy?
same observation. How it went, this probably should never have been allowed when they zoned this in 85 or 90 or whenever they did the zoning for this subdivision. There should have been a 100 feet of space between the Hungerford Hill subdivision and the Bayview Estates. And this creep is just going to keep creeping. I'm not in favor of changing the zoning. It just moves the edge of the contentious edge over a little.
There's no more public comment, Aaron?
This is between you guys.
Yeah, sorry.
Seconded though, so we'll have another hearing.
And just to clarify, if it fails in the first reading, I think that's it. So,
To speak.
and I would,
I'm sorry, Mayor.
I'm glad I got a second tonight so we could have discussion of this. I think the people that have applied for this and got a unanimous decision from the Planning and Zoning Commission deserved an explanation why people didn't agree with it if that's how the vote comes out. So
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm glad we're back to this point. So that's, and I'll just give my 2 cents after everybody else is done. Any more discussion?
I was just going to respond to, Assemblymember Strand. The Assembly ultimately controls the issue of the creep and whether it keeps moving that direction or not. And, that there's no real answer for. I mean, meaning this Assembly could say this is approved. 5 years from now, somebody could ask for the next 2 lots, and that Assembly at the time could feel that it was a valid thing to do. I mean, that's the nature of this kind of process. So I can't give any reassurances to folks who don't want it to happen because, again, the Assembly has the ultimate right to be able to make those decisions.
Thanks, Steve. Any other comments? Kurt?
One comment I'd like to make is that I talked to some of the planning and zoning commissioners, and I respect them because of the position they're in, and I think they took a lot of time on this decision, and they said this looks good on a map if you can go between industrial to commercial to then a green strip and then whatever else you're going to do beyond that, instead of just budding. So when they penciled this in with a yellow crayon in 1980, nobody had any vision of the future. And a lot of times, progress sometimes has to take a deviation from the direction it's going in. And, who am I to say where this creep is going to end? But I really wanted to have the answer tonight, or the question answered tonight, what was going to happen to those other 2 lots that are bordering the industrial area? Should those have also been zoned commercial too? And then we could have figured out where a green strip was going to be and then go to, that's something I think we'll have to bring up at another time, another discussion. When I talked to Steve earlier today, he said that, maybe we need to revisit our zoning ordinances and maybe make them a little more cut and dried. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Kodiak, but you've got a home, a commercial tire business, another couple of homes, crab pots stacked up, to the ceiling on the roadway, and I mean, it just, what I mean, so no forethought. But in this case, I drove up there. I sympathize with anybody who's bought property up there under the notion that this was all going to be single-family residential. But this may be an opportunity for us to maybe start this in the proper direction by doing what it has been suggested, where it does look good on the map, where you do the industrial, commercial, green strip, residence. So I'm going to vote for it myself.
Okay.
for that
Bob,
reason.
okay, are you done, Kurt?
Yeah, I'm done.
Bob, do you have a comment?
When I've tallied up the comments on this proposal, it looks to me like it's about 50-50 when I did. And there's good arguments both sides of the proposal. But the question comes to my mind is, where do we, that was originally defined residential, not commercial. People, when they purchased it, knew what it was zoned at. And so now we're going to go ahead, well, because we bought it, now we're going to change it. And yeah, I agree, maybe it could have been done differently up front. But I guess I also have a question in terms of, I guess I also don't understand what commercial 2 is in total. And I'd like a more fuller explanation if you could give that to me.
Yeah, that would be the, yeah.
Yes, I could do that. Commercial 2 allows all the uses in Commercial 1, which is offices, everything downtown, in the downtown area. That's Commercial 1. It also allows warehouses and storage, transportation facilities, manufacturing and assembling of a light industrial nature, radio towers, and required essential services. It also limits any practice that causes noxious or offensive odors, gas, fumes, smoke, dust, or vibration or noise, which interferes with other property owners. So it's a more restricted use than just industrial, which allows rock crushers, fuel storage, any use.
Does that answer your question, Bob, or do you need?
Part of it, and then the question about planning and zoning, in listening to it earlier, decided that the restrictions put on it was sufficient to take care of all the other property owners up there.
Though the commission hesitated to zone it industrial because that would have no limitations whatsoever. And they felt that Commercial 2 at least has light industrial uses and not the heavy industrial that could cause more effects on the neighbors.
Thank you.
Jay?
Yeah, having spoken with several members of the planning and zoning as well, and they voted unanimously 7-0 to send this to us. Having speaking with them, the point that I took from them, and I think the sticking point, was the green belt that you guys are talking about putting in, the fence, alders, etc., cottonwood. If this ends up being approved, my hope for you is that is swiftly followed through on, because I believe that was the intent of the planning and zoning for, or that was maybe not the intent, but the sticking point that really tipped them over the edge for that, to make this sound good to them to pass it unanimously. And maybe I guess I don't want to speak for the entire planning and zoning, but for the 2 that I spoke to, that's what I got from that. So if this passes, I hope you take that seriously, I guess.
Any other comments on the?
I guess for my part, if everybody's weighing in, I really have a problem with buying a residential property, using it as a commercial property, and then applying for a conditional use permit, the terms of which you did not meet, and then continuing along the road of changing the zoning on the property over the objection of neighbors. And there are neighbors who have objected. And that, for me, weighs more than the Planning Commission voting to change the zoning. The neighbors are not all in favor.
Well, this is the time for us to voice our opinions, and then, do any other assembly members have any comments on it? I drove up through the area, and you know, you couldn't build a fence tall enough if you had a house on top of that hill where you're not going to see some kind of a warehouse, or, you know, maybe it won't be right next to you. And I've got a lot up Lyons Road, straight up behind Rockies Marine, where my welding shop is, and it just shows maybe there was poor planning, because I'm industrial, and my neighbor right behind me is residential. I try to be nice. I don't try to make too much noise before, whenever I need to go to work, but it's cutting aluminum and whatnot. But I think we need to encourage, commercial storage and stuff around town. But maybe, and I appreciate Cindy's position too. I think with the greenbelt going in, I guess another question, I might be talking in circles over here, but the greenbelt going in, I mean, how long does it take an alder to go up? I mean, I know not 5 years, so in 5 years we're going to have a greenbelt? I mean, just, a thought, but I guess there's been equipment stored there already. So since there's 3 readings of this ordinance, I'm going to vote for it in the first reading. And if it passes, good, then we'll get on to the second reading where it's public comment. And hopefully if people don't like what we're doing, if anybody's listening to this, then they could come and voice their opinions so we have more information to base our decision on. And that's, I'm glad there's 3 readings, but I'm going to vote in favor of it whether it passes or not. So that's my 2 cents. Nancy?
I am not in favor of this, but I agree that the public hearing would be excellent. So, and maybe against my better judgment, I too will vote yes in the first reading. And hopefully the public will turn out en masse to testify, because I'm only voting once in favor.
Okay, well, any other comments? Sounds like before we start voting, we should, but I guess I just did too, so. Any other comments? Clerk, call the roll.
Nancy,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Kurt,
Yes.
Cindy,
No.
Bob,
No.
Jay,
Yes.
and John.
No.
Okay, it passes. Ordinance 2014-02 passes 4 votes to 3 in its first reading. So at the next meeting, we'll have the second reading and public comment. Okay, now we're on to ordinance 2014-03. An ordinance amending the official zoning map for Service Area 1 of the Petersburg Borough to rezone Lot 4 of the subdivision of Tract B of Olson subdivision from single-family residential to commercial with special limitations. This is the first reading. All attachments with ordinance 2014-02 also apply to this ordinance. Entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 2014-03 in its first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Member Walhooter, seconded by Member Gregor to adopt ordinance 2014-03 in its first reading. Discussion?
I'll make the same observation I just made about the last one,
Okay.
only because I agree the public hearing would be edifying.
Okay. Any other discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Kurt,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
John,
No.
Cindy,
No.
Bob,
No.
and Jay.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2014, get the numbers right, 03 passes in its first reading. Okay, on to new business. Authorization to enter into a professional services contract with P&D Engineers not to exceed $68,755 for contract administration and inspection services for the Crane Dock Approach Widening Project. Entertain a motion to authorize this expenditure.
Second.
Moved by Member Havlicek, seconded by Member Walhooter to authorize the Borough to go into a professional services contract with P&D. Discussion? Any discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Kurt,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
Jay,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and John.
Yes.
Okay, authorization to enter into the professional services contract with P&D Engineers passes unanimously. Next item under new business, award of recycling collection contract and authorization for Borough Manager to enter into a professional services contract with Ruger's Trucking LLC for a base contract amount of $100,500. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Member Havlicek, seconded by Member Lynn to award the recycling collection contract to Ruger's Trucking. to authorize the manager to go into negotiations with him, so. Discussion? Kurt?
Mr. Mayor, when is the current contract going to be up? And how soon does this have to get underway?
Gentleman, right back there.
Mr. Mayor and Assembly, the current contract expires at the end of this month, March 31st.
Kurt?
Follow-up question for Carl then. Carl, then who's going to take over in the meantime then? Because if this has to go through 3 readings.
This doesn't.
Oh, this does not. Oh,
This is
just going to be
a contract
on the
award.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
But,
Stand corrected.
John?
Mr. Mayor, I agreed with the person earlier, this is expensive. But what I am hoping is that our community will go like others. I'm really pleased with the amount of people that have signed up for recycling, and that I know for my purposes, my garbage has been cut into 2/3 or a half. And I feel really good about that, which is a strange emotion for me. But anyway, I hope that, like other communities, we can go on this where it really won't cost us much at all except the initial investment, where 1 week we pick up garbage and the next week we pick up recycle. And with the amount of recycle, if I'm an indication, which looking at my neighbors, I think I am, that there's almost more recycle than garbage. So I think people could go 2 weeks, easily with garbage, and then, the opposite with recycle. Which, if we're using those trucks just once each week for collection, one for recycle and then the next week for garbage, vice versa, I don't think the expense will be much at all then. Anyway, that's what I'm hoping for.
Kurt?
And Mark, this is a question for the city manager. Steve, I know that the PIA, also put a bid in, but these guys were the lowest. Why did PIA decide to change their bid from half of what it used to be to higher than
Very
this one?
large. I can't speak for their decision-making, but evidently they decided that with the increased recycling, that was going to cost them a lot more. Their bid went up dramatically.
So follow-up is for the manager, is that, so this doesn't seem like it's unreasonable for, if the person that had been doing it did not see that it was going to be profitable enough to continue at the same base rate that they were, that they had to increase it?
They seemed to feel that it was going to cost them a lot more money, and again, this was, the one we're recommending was the low bid by a sizable margin.
Thank you.
Jay?
Question for Carl, if I may. I imagine this creates a budget deficit shortfall that was unanticipated, yes?
It does.
So given that, I would hope you thought about it. What is your plan to, what's your long-term vision of bringing that back in line? If we approve this contract, what is the vision to narrow that deficit as much as possible or make this potentially profitable?
It is all tied to the diversion rate from our solid waste stream to the recycling. That's the whole purpose of the commingled stream, is to take the solid waste that we ship at $105 a ton and turn it into recycling that we ship at $35 a ton. That's the whole reason we're doing this. The recycling rate that we achieve ultimately, the goals that were set in the ordinance that the Assembly passed earlier this year, don't happen overnight, and we need to work to achieve those rates. If we can get to where we want to be, ultimately, this will not be a problem at all. And in fact, we will be making money, essentially saving more than what it looks possible now today. But this is something that doesn't change overnight, and I would recommend that we award this contract, move forward, and let this program work for a year and see where we're at. We can definitely change our methods in next year at this time during budget preparations, but we're just getting the program off the ground, and I believe that we're going to see diversion rates rise and rise throughout the year. So that's the key. How we get there, to follow up on that, is through public education. I've did quite a bit of advertising to get the program off the ground, but since it started, we've just been kind of playing catcher and dealing with all the requests and the increase in business. Now that things are pretty much leveled out as far as customer base, we can go back to the advertising and start to pick up the people that haven't signed up yet. There are still a number of folks at the lowest service level that haven't signed up yet. Yes, they are paying the higher rate, but again, diversion being the key, to get everybody involved would be a great thing. We can do that through advertising and public relations. We haven't gone into the schools yet. Sorry, I'm going to probably keep going here for a while, but we haven't gone into the schools yet pointedly to make presentations to the kids. We know for a fact that when kids get involved with a program like this and police their parents on what to put in the bag and what not to put in the bag, things happen, diversion rates go up. Another niche of business, we've got commercial businesses that have signed up for the program, but not all have. So we can focus more on commercial aspect of the recycling program. And even the larger industrial companies, the canneries, to see what kind of recycling they can do. I think they would be all over a method where they could identify some waste in their businesses that could be recycled instead of put in the baler. It would save them a tremendous amount of money if they can keep cardboard dry and keep cans clean, for instance, instead of paying 16.5 cents a pound, dropping it off for free. Seems like a win for them. So there are many different ways, but it starts with the department getting the word out and starting to focus on those different areas of our customer base that haven't started recycling yet.
You had another comment, Jay?
If I may.
Sure.
Question is our current diversion rate and what the goal would be. And the suffix to that is, I don't know if you can speculate, but in your professional opinion, is that goal attainable?
Well, current rates are, historically, I guess I can answer that. Historically,
Sure.
We've been less than 10%, right around probably 7% is what I figured in the past. The numbers that have been coming in have been all over. The one thing about solid waste and recycling is it's always a variable. You don't use the same stuff every week. You don't throw away the same stuff every week. So weights go up and down, and it's very hard. It's been very hard for me to pin down exactly what kind of trend we're seeing as far as solid waste going down and recycling weights going up. There is a trend. We obviously have more recycling going on now than we had before, but I can't really put a number to it. The first month and a half, on a weekly basis, I've seen some weeks that pencil out to 10% and others that pencil out to 22%. So it's going up, but I can't put a number on it right now. The ultimate goal in the recycling, I think that we put in the ordinance, was a 50% recycling rate, and that wasn't until 2019, I think. So it's a ways down the road. I absolutely think it's attainable, and we might get there before 2019 if we take some steps to target those customers, in the community that haven't started recycling yet. Get the word out and make it easy for them to do so.
Thank you, Carl.
Any other questions? I've got a couple of questions, I guess. One, if we don't get to what percentage increase do we have to get to, and maybe you answered this and I was asleep, but to pay the $100,000 contract? I mean, you say 2019 is going to be 50%. I mean, how many years are we going to be in a deficit mode? Potentially. I guess we don't know if it's a moving.
Yeah, well, the sanitation budget we've developed for next fiscal year is based on a 30% recycling rate. And with that rate and this contract factored into the mix, we're in a deficit of about $43,000, according to Steve's formula, trying to put in some money to cover depreciation. So we're underwater this next year for certain. The numbers that we see are pretty positive as far as some of our expenses. For instance, bail disposal, this year we budgeted $260,000. we're budgeting in this next year $176,000. That's an expense. We're saving that much because we're diverting 30% of our solid waste to recycling. The biggest problem with the budget is this contract. To be completely honest, this is the difference between what we were paying PIA before, $36,000, and what this contract is annually, $80,000. The contract is $100,000, but annually, over a 12-month period, it's $80,000. The difference between that is almost exactly our deficit, $43,000. So if we can hit 30%, we're going to be underwater. If we keep rising that, at 40%, we're going to be fine. 50%, we're going to be more than fine.
Okay, next question is, what happens if we don't approve this?
That's a good question. I will be looking at other options. I do not want to kill the program. I think we need to continue with this program.
I just
think
thought it'd be good to, sorry for interrupting, to know what could happen. I mean,
right. Probably the first thing I would do is talk to PIA and see if I could extend their contract and buy us a little more time. I have no idea what they would want to negotiate their price at. Obviously, they put in a price in their proposal that was a lot higher than we're paying now. I don't know if they would stick to that or not. But I would try and get us down the road a little bit and work out some options. There are some options, hiring in-house, as Ray recommended, is an option. A full-time sanitation employee is worth about $75,000 a year. This contract is $80,000 a year. So on a full-time basis, we're not really seeing much of a difference there. A part-timer, like Ray suggested, might work out. Not hiring anybody and trying to work out some kind of a schedule with our existing staff could work out, but I'm not sure that we could do it and keep the baler open 7 or 6 days a week. If we close the facility more, we would be sacrificing some service to the community, but we could potentially, meet this need, for the recycling program. There's a lot of different options to look at. This is the one that I'm recommending moving forward with, so I haven't really done a lot of fine-tuning or finagling on which is the best to go.
okay, thanks, Carl. Kurt?
I understand that this contract amount would also include gas. You said, we could put one of our employees at about 70,000 or so a year, plus gas. So.
And insurance.
Yeah, and insurance.
That's
I think it's gone way over whatever this $83,000 is. So.
Yes, yeah,
okay.
You're correct.
Any more discussion on this authorization for the manager to award this contract to Ruger Trucking? Is that what it is? Ruger Trucking LLC?
Yes.
Seeing none, clerk call the roll.
Nancy.
Yes.
Bob.
Yes.
John Hebron.
Yes.
Kurt.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
And Cindy.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Okay, any communications? Seeing none. Assembly discussion items, there isn't any. Recognitions, any recognitions? John?
Mayor, I'd just like to thank Patrick and Kimmy and Trading Union Hammers for the great job of the firemen's volunteer lunch breakfast. Yeah, Patrick and Kimmy always, just do an unbelievable job. I never leave there without being sick. It's a good place.
Sounds good. Any other recognitions? Oh, Sandy.
Into one of my things, which was to thank PFITU and Hammer and Recon for the breakfast as well. They donated all the proceeds to the fire department, to the volunteers. And then we also said goodbye to Valerie Allen, who had volunteered for 12 years with the department as an EMT too. So we bid her fond farewell, and she already has a job.
Didn't take her long. Okay, any other recognitions? Oh, Donnie.
Mayor, I just wanted to point out that we do have 2 champions in the room today. 2 of our user groups from Parks and Recreation both went up to Juneau over the last month, and brought back trophies. Number one, our hockey team, and then also just this past weekend, our soccer team as well. So congratulations to both of them, and we're glad that they're going up there and representing.
Perfect. Thanks. Good job. Any other recognitions? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?